Good evening. From the land of the expensive and the home of dystopia, I'm Bill London. I host Wake Up Call on KPNW Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9. Heard on 1120 KPNW and 93.7 FM, streaming worldwide at kpnw.com. And today's Oregon crazy news brought to you by none other than Sean Sutherland. He is the answer man, and he owns Ask Insurance. People have a lot of questions about insurance, in particular Medicare, which is why they're called Ask Insurance. You just call him up and you ask. And by the way, if you want, you can ask him, who you think's going to win the NBA championship. I'm sure he has an opinion. Hi, Sean. All right. Here's a look at some of the stories we're following. And there are a number of them. I'm going to start with this one because this is insane. So a federal judge has ruled that a jury needs to resolve whether an arrest by Medford police of a radio reporter covering a homeless sweep at a city public park right in the middle of Medford stemmed from actually concern for safety or an attempt to avoid bad press. The ruling questioned every single argument brought by the city of Medford as justification for the police department's arrest of Jefferson Public Radio reporter April Ehrlich 5 years ago in 2020. Now, Ehrlich was working for the Ashland-based JPR in 2020 when she was arrested while trying to cover the Medford Police Department's sweep of a huge growing homeless camp in Hawthorne Park. Now, it sprung up in the immediate aftermath of the devastating Labor Day Alameda fire down in the Medford area that left hundreds homeless. The city had directed reporters covering the sweep to stay in a designated staging area away from the park, but Ehrlich got there early, well before the sweep began, and she was arrested after she was told to leave and objected. She said, "I'm on public city property." During the booking process, not only was she arrested by police, but they strip searched her and gave her a body cavity search. This is a radio nerd with a microphone and a recorder. The city subsequently dismissed at least the first of three charges against her, which was interference. Then a municipal court said, no, we're dismissing trespassing, which led the city to dismiss the third and final charge, which was resisting arrest. Now, the reporter is represented by Kafuri and McDougall. They're a well-known Oregon law firm that specializes in big, fat verdicts against government agencies. Ehrlich sued on the grounds her civil rights were violated. What? A strip search because you wouldn't leave a park? That's not violation. And she said she was the victim of false arrest and battery. She wants a jury to be allowed to consider punitive damages to, in her words, deter this kind of conduct. The city asked the judge for a summary judgment, meaning the city wanted the judge to rule in its favor on points of law and dismiss the case in its entirety. The judge absolutely refused to do that. The trial is now pending. Well, 3 additional international students with F-1 visas had them revoked by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security on unspecified criminal charges, and they were all students at the University of Oregon. Now, as we'd reported before, another student had their visa revoked last week. The University of Oregon confirmed the revocations this week and said they weren't given any details about the charges. And while the reasons for the student's visa's revocation remains unknown, it does follow President Donald Trump's crackdown on immigration. And once again, the university says they didn't bring the individuals to the attention of the feds and that they have no involvement in the visa status. But what they did say is they're working with the students who had their visas revoked, including trying to set up legal assistance for them. The names of the students have yet to be released. Oh, Oregon and its computer systems. We've told you over the course of months about the Francis system. That was a system put into place by the Oregon Employment Department to handle unemployment claims. And since it went online over a year ago, they've had nothing with problems with it. But the Oregon Employment Department says, we've got the problems worked out. Not so much. Oregon's Employment Department completed its review of 12,000 erroneous tax forms sent to Oregonians who received unemployment benefits last year. Now, if you didn't know this, if you collect unemployment in Oregon, you're required to pay taxes on it unless you have taxes automatically withdrawn from it before they pay you. So you get a 1099-G from the state of Oregon. And those people should have their corrected 1099-G forms for their taxes by tomorrow. The April 15th tax day is next Tuesday. And so what it means for those people, if they've already filed their federal taxes with the erroneous tax forms from the Oregon Employment Department, it means they're going to have to go back and amend those. And if they've been paying to have accountants or, H&R Block do them, guess what? Yeah, that's going to come out of their pocket. The Oregon Department of Revenue does provide, helpfully, options for updating state returns. And of course, it was the conversion from the old computer system to the new Francis online system that caused all the problems. Then you have a 27-year-old woman who impersonated, well, I say that with a caveat, a 27-year-old woman who impersonated a high schooler was sentenced this week in a Lynn County courthouse in Albany. So in December, prosecutors said that transsexual Michaela Craig, who used to be known as Alec Ray Craig, tried to enroll as a 15-year-old girl at South Albany High School, claiming her name was Madison. Now, Craig claimed she was homeless and intended to enroll in school for classes, and that she was 15. The next day, on December 13th, prosecutors say Craig went to the Greater Albany Public School District headquarters, and administrators say they noticed that, well, something was kind of off, and they contacted police. Soon, they realized Craig's true identity, Michaela Craig, who used to be known as Alec Ray Craig. And by the way, Craig is a registered sex offender. So that person, Craig, had been convicted of sexually abusing a minor, well, in 2003, and ordered not to be anywhere near minors. Well, prosecutors asked Craig to be sentenced to 40 days in jail, 3 years probation, and stay 500 feet away from schools. Defense attorneys countered at plea sentencing that the judge just forced Craig to serve community sentence rather than a prison sentence. According to the assistant DA, Colleen Serta, as a registered sex offender, this person is trying to pretend that she's a juvenile to become involved with other juveniles in the high school system. It needs to be more. Craig eventually was sentenced to 20 days in jail, 2 years probation, and ordered to stay 500 feet away from schools. All right, we'll talk a little bit about the legislature. So, as expected, on a party line vote Tuesday, the Oregon House Judiciary Committee passed House Bills 3075 and House Bill 3076. Now, 3075 implements Anti-Gun Measure 14, or 114, but increases the fees and adds other restrictions on top of it to buying and owning guns. The chair of the committee called the massive fee increase a technical fix and said that was needed so that we could have background checks, which, by the way, is something we've had for generations. Now, House Bill 3076 adds a variety of new restrictions to gun stores, requiring the addition of new, expensive, custom-made security structures in those stores that will restrict buyers from handling guns, being able to access guns, and even handle them, new or used, prior to purchase. The same with ammunition. And it would also apply to guns on sale at gun shows with these new security structures, and apply to home-based FFL holders who sell guns, mostly antique and collectible gun dealers, they would have to have the same thing. Both of the bills move to the House floor where they're expected to pass, and they will move to the Senate. Governor Tina Kotek already told Democratic leadership about the gun bills. If you pass them, I will sign them. Then, a day later, the legislature's third major gun control bill passed a committee and is being sent to the Senate floor. That's Senate Bill 243-4. It makes 4 changes in Oregon's gun regulations. It establishes a 72-hour waiting period before somebody can obtain a gun that they're buying, raise the age to 21 to legally possess a gun, ban devices that turn guns from semi-automatic to fully automatic, which is already against federal law, and allow cities, counties, even metropolitan service districts or county service districts to ban people with concealed carry licenses from carrying guns not only in their businesses, offices, but also any grounds adjacent to those offices, like parking lots or even apartment complexes that are nearby. And the way that the bill is written, if you were, for instance, a concealed carry license holder, let's say you know you're going into one of these buildings, your gun is banned, you put it in a lockbox in your trunk, and you park in the parking lot for said government office. Even under those conditions, it's against the law. The bill was sponsored by Eugene area Senator Floyd Przonski. And finally, as insurance companies like United Healthcare and private equity firms suck up hospitals, medical clinics, other healthcare providers, even private practices, Oregon Senate Bill 951 has passed the Senate on a bipartisan basis, surprisingly, and it would bring the nation's strictest regulations over corporate ownership of doctors' offices and medical clinics. Now, Oregon law currently requires licensed physicians to hold a majority stake in medical practices, but bill proponents claim independent medical practices are sidestepping this by using what's called management service organizations. They're third-party groups that contract with clinics to provide basically everything: financial, administrative, technological support. And what they do is they install a physician as a paper owner of the medical practice who makes absolutely no decisions on patient care, and the MSOs basically direct the care. Well, Senate Bill 951 would strengthen current law to keep care decisions in the hands of medical practitioners. Now, the bill gained steam after United Health Group pushed doctors out of medical clinics in Corvallis and also in Eugene. As a matter of fact, hundreds of patients at these medical clinics around Eugene received letters out of the blue saying, "You are no longer our patient." And then, shortly thereafter, they received another letter that said, "Oh, by the way, if we were giving you prescription script, we're no longer doing that." And that will end at the end of the month, leaving people not only without primary care physicians, but none of the drugs that they take daily. The bill outlines a phased implementation that would give medical practices 3 years to come into compliance with the law. All right, your crazy news brought to you by Big Sean Sutherland of Ask Insurance. Just call him. Just ask. Whatever you want to ask. You know, you could say, "So, what kind of tire pressure should I have in my Nissan Sentra?" Maybe he can help you out. All right, Rick, roll out the reel.